On the night of March 8, 2026, a late-night prank carried out by a group of high school seniors in Gainesville, Georgia, ended in a tragedy that shocked the entire community. What began as a common senior prank involving toilet paper quickly escalated into a fatal incident that left a respected teacher dead and several students facing serious criminal charges. The teacher was Jason Hughes, an educator and coach at North Hall High School in Gainesville, Georgia. Within hours of the incident, investigators would determine that Hughes had been struck by a vehicle driven by one of his own beloved students. This is the timeline of what happened, the charges that followed, and the facts investigators have revealed about the case so far. Jason Hughes was known in the North Hall High School community as a dedicated teacher and coach. Colleagues described him as someone who held students to high standards, but also invested deeply into their success. Teachers and students alike remembered Hughes as someone who cared about discipline, character, and helping young people prepare for the future. Outside of the classroom, Hughes was known as a husband and father who valued family and community. Because of that reputation, news of his death spread quickly through Gainesville and surrounding areas. Many people in the community are struggling to understand how such a tragedy could happen to such a wonderful person. Investigators have so far determined that the incident began as a senior prank. Senior pranks are a long-standing tradition at many American high schools. Students sometimes decorate a teacher's yard with toilet paper, plastic forks, or other harmless decorations for kicks and giggles. Such pranks are normally funny and harmless. At North Hall High School, similar pranks had reportedly occurred during past school years. On the night of March 8th, several seniors decided to carry out a prank at the home of their teacher, Jason Hughes. They brought rolls of toilet paper and began tossing them into trees and across the yard. At that point, the prank appeared similar to many others that have taken place at high schools across the country. But within minutes, the situation would change dramatically. According to investigators, the students arrived at Hughes' home late at night. After throwing toilet paper around the yard, they were preparing to leave the area, but inside the house, Hughes became aware that something was happening outside. When he stepped out to investigate, the students realized they had been caught. Police say the group then attempted to leave the scene quickly. Several students ran back toward vehicles parked nearby. One of those vehicles was a pickup truck. Authorities say that 18-year-old Jayden Ryan Wallace was driving that truck. During the confusion as students tried to leave the area, Hughes ran toward the street. At some point during this moment, investigators say Hughes fell in the roadway. As the pickup truck moved forward, Hughes was struck. After Hughes was hit, the situation immediately turned into an emergency. Students present at the scene reportedly called for help. Emergency responders arrived and Hughes was transported to a nearby hospital. Despite medical efforts, he later died from his injuries. The incident immediately triggered a law enforcement investigation. Authorities needed to determine whether the incident was a tragic accident or a criminal act. Investigators interviewed the students involved and examined the events leading up to the collision. Law enforcement confirmed that 5 North Hall High School seniors had been involved in the prank. The driver of the pickup truck was identified as Jayden Ryan Wallace, age 18. Following the investigation, Wallace was charged with first-degree vehicular homicide, reckless driving, criminal trespass, littering on private property. Under Georgia law, First-degree vehicular homicide is a felony offense that can carry a prison sentence if a person is convicted. But Wallace was not the only person facing charges. Authorities also charged for additional students who were present during the prank. Those students were identified as Elijah Tate Owens, Aiden Hucks, and Katherine Luque, Ariana Cruz. Each of them was charged with criminal trespass and littering, misdemeanor charges related to the prank itself. News of Hughes' death quickly spread throughout Gainesville and the North Hall High School community. Students gathered for vigils. Teachers spoke publicly about the impact Hughes had on their lives and on the school. Parents in the community expressed shock that what began as a prank had resulted in such a devastating outcome. But one response in particular drew national attention. Rather than calling for harsh punishment, members of Hughes' family spoke about forgiveness. Hughes' wife publicly stated that the students involved never intended to cause his death. She emphasized that Hughes cared deeply about the students he taught. In some public statements, the family even asked prosecutors to consider showing compassion toward the teenagers involved. That response was widely discussed because it reflected a desire for healing rather than anger. Despite the family's request for compassion, the legal system must still determine whether criminal charges apply. Cases involving vehicular homicide often depend on factors such as reckless driving, speed, and the circumstances of the collision. Investigators must determine whether the driver acted in a way that meets the legal standard for criminal liability. As the case proceeds through the legal system, prosecutors and defense attorneys will present evidence and arguments about what happened that night. As this case continues to move through the legal system, many questions remain about exactly how the events of that night unfolded. What is certain is that a respected teacher lost his life, and a community continues to grapple with the shock and sadness that followed. Jason Hughes is remembered by students, colleagues, and family members as a dedicated educator who cared deeply about the young people he taught. Our thoughts and sincere condolences go out to his family, his loved ones, and everyone in the North Hall High School community who has been affected by this tragedy. It is also important to remember that, under the law, all individuals charged with a crime are presumed innocent unless and until proven guilty in a court of law. The charges filed in this case represent allegations, and the legal process will ultimately determine the outcome. Cases like this remind us how quickly situations can change and how deeply the consequences of a single moment can affect many lives. We will continue to follow developments in this case as more information becomes available. Thank you for watching.